Well, what an exciting time of year. It's IPL season. I'm going to review the first match of the season 2025. An exciting match it is. We've got the defending champs KKR against last year's semi-finalists RCB. Now, firstly, there's been a bit of talk about rain around in Kolkata, and there has been. So, obviously, I've got on the weather app, like I'm sure all of you have, looked at the forecast, and to be fair, it actually looks pretty good come the start of the match, and even leading up to it. So plenty of rain beforehand, but pretty hopeful that it might blow through and we could well get a full game. So the plan around this in terms of the preview is that there will be a full game in place. Obviously, if it's reduced, the sides could well change. Now, there are two things with rain around and in Kolkata when there's been a lot of rain leading up to the match. One thing is that the ground staff could have prepared the pitch early, knowing that there was loads of rain, so they've kept it under covers, so it could be very dry underneath. That's one possibility. The other one is that it'll sweat because obviously it's very hot in Kolkata this time of year and it'll be sticky. So those are the two likely scenarios, is that the pitch will be either a little bit sticky for the seam bowlers up front and it could actually turn, or it could be dry. So it might be slowish and then it'll slide on nicer under lights. So either way, the side winning the toss would like to bowl first. Now, there is a flow-on effect from a bowling point of view, and I think this brings RCB's seam attack into the game nicely if the ball swings around a little bit, which we know it will at Kolkata. So for me, there's two real key matchups. Obviously, Bhuvi, Yash Dayal and Hoff. So Hazlewood, I know they've got Rasik Dar as well, but from a seam bowling point of view, if there's a little bit of swing and a bit of bounce, those three against Vaibhav Arora, Harshit Rana, and I think Spencer Johnson. And I think if Spencer Johnson gets it right on this surface and there's a little bit in it, he could be really hard work. So I'm going to look at both these sides from a batting first perspective. Okay, so batting first team. We know that obviously one side's going to bowl first and there will be a flow-on effect. And I'll talk about that as we progress. But I'll go through KKR. Now, we know Quinton de Kock and Sunil Narine will go hard at the new ball. Now, it'll go one of two ways. If Bhuvi can get the ball swinging, and he can find a good length, he could create some opportunity and some indecision. Same as Hazlewood. If he gets that bounce and seam, it's not that easy to just come hard at him. But the challenge from RCB's point of view is finding the right length against Narine. If you pitch it up, trying to swing it, he'll bang you down the ground, and he's an explosive player. If you bowl that hard length, sort of around about hip height to above, he will also bang you, both over the offside, he'll drag you over here. So for me, you've got to actually either take the pace off as one option. You've got to come up underneath his armpit or even the right side of his head so he can't give himself room and flat bat it. Or you've got to actually go slow and wide, and then he'll end up throwing his hands at it and potentially the ball will lob up that way. So you can't actually bowl normally just good length to Narine. If you do, you can disappear. So they will take it on regardless. Quinton de Kock's obviously got a little bit more experience and craft batting at the top of the order than Narine, who probably has the one tempo. But Quinton de Kock is one of those players that he likes hard and fast. He likes the ball sliding on. Doesn't really like that tennis ball bounce. So once again, we will know really early on in terms of how the pitch at KKR at Eden Gardens is going to play. Now, I think Raghuvanshi should bat at 3. And the reason why I think that, he came in last year, he is a player who will not stall the innings. He's got a wonderful technique, can score all around the ground. And I think he needs to slot in there. And I think Rahane is almost like a backstop. You know, Rahane, by all reports, hasn't been in great touch during all the warm-up games. I've watched a little bit on TV. He doesn't look like he's quite in vintage form. Now, that can turn around really quickly. But I just don't think you want to put Rahane in at 3 and lose the value of Raghuvanshi, sliding down, because potentially if he slides, he could slide all the way down. I think that would be a waste. Venkatesh Iyer is that left-hander in the middle. He could well slide if Rahane comes down, and all these guys, to be fair, could slide up. Venkatesh was bought for a huge amount of money. They are expecting big things this season, and it's pretty much time for him to turn it on. Obviously he scored 100 against Mumbai last year. He looks, when he's on song, he's on song. But this year is the year where he needs to hold that middle order together. Rinku Singh, superb finisher. It's just whether the top order can set a platform for him to be come in and finish the innings. If he has to come in the 10th over and basically get himself set and then go, he's not quite as effective as when he can come out and score from ball one. Obviously, Russell, once again, they'll slide him up. Huge power player, but come in with 5 overs to go, he's incredibly dangerous. Come in with 10 overs to go, he's not quite sure the tempo that he wants to play. Ramandeep, another power player, good technique, and he sort of rounds out that powerful, 6 to 8. The seam bowlers are good. Obviously, Harshit Rana, Indian player. I think Spencer Johnson will play ahead of Nokia. There's a lot of talk about Nokia being injured. He has come off a back injury, which is really hard to come straight back in and try and bowl 150 kilometres an hour. But he would not be in camp unless they thought that it was a good chance he could. But I think in terms of playing against RCB in their top order, I think a left armour who hits a hard length, can swing it, could be a real handful for any side. But that RCB top order, in particular, if there's a little bit of movement in to the right-handers, he is a real threat. And Spencer Johnson is either he's really on song or he's not. So they will know from the warm-up games whether he's got his rhythm. If he's got his rhythm and he starts well, he could be a real threat. Chakravarti, we know will bowl in all 3 phases. And the challenge for RCB will be playing Chakravarti and Narayan from a batting point of view, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. But come in fine form. He's confident and he loves bowling at the death, which is, he can be tough to get away. Vaibhav Arora will swing the new ball in Calcutta. He is a fine new ball bowler, can swing the ball both ways. And I guess if you've got those 3 seamers, you've got Ramandeep and Russell as well as backup seamers. You've got the spin of Chakravarti and Narayan. Venkatesh is a half bowler, really. I don't think they need him. They've already got 7 frontline bowling options, if you use Russell and Ramandeep. So I don't think Russell will bowl too much too early. He might bowl towards the back end. But, yeah, very well-balanced side, and I think that's pretty much the team that they will go with. Just a side note, Umran Malik has dropped out of the KKR squad. Chetan Sakaria has come in. And if they do see that this wicket is a little bit sticky, and they've got the option of bowling first or batting first, then Chetan Sakaria could be a good option on that surface. I don't think he will play, but anyone that bowls that one out the back of the hand and that slower ball on a surface that holds could be hard work. So that's a nice addition, albeit quite a different one than Umran Malik, who provides that 150k an hour backup. So we'll talk about RCB. See, very at the top. The orange cap holder played superbly last year. When he's on song, he scores hundreds. I'm sure he'll be in a good frame of mind. He was in good touch during the Champions Trophy. Phil Salt at the top of the order. And I think Phil Salt is a really key player for RCB in this match. And not so much just the top of the order against the new ball. If he can get through the new ball, then the fact that Phil Salt has wicket kept to both Sunny Narayan and Varun Chakravarti for a whole season or two, there's no better place to pick the variations than standing behind the stumps. So if Salt can get through the initial power play and can be there to face the likes of Chakravarti and Narayan, RCB will be in a great position. Because it's very difficult. DDP has had his struggles against those spinners. Rajat in his first match, I remember against Chakravarti, he got his poles knocked over. He wasn't quite sure which way the ball was going. The reason why I've got Livingston, I had Livingston batting at 3, is because if he has to come in batting against Narayan and Chakravarti through those middle overs, I don't hold out a huge amount of hope. Just because he is, he is a very good player against pace. All of his good record domestically has come either opening or batting at 3. That's where he scored the high volume of his runs. And if he's not in great touch, which apparently he's not during the warm-up matches, then they'll consider Jacob Bethel. But I think they will go DDP at 3. I think if he gets in early, that's fine. Because I think if he bats in the power play, that's pretty much what he's equipped to do. Otherwise, I think if it's after the power play, then I think DDP would slide. Devdutt Padikkal, Rajat would slide up. You could have Livingston slide up, etc., etc. So I think that's a little bit of a moving feast and more about an entry point rather than necessarily a number. But as I said, I'm a fan of Livingston sliding up. Whether he plays or Bethel, that will be interesting to see as well. The problem with if they play Bethel rather than Livingston is they just don't have that frontline off spinner, and they would therefore rely on Tim David's off spin, which is steady, but it's certainly not as good as or as experienced at the highest level as Livingston. Jitesh, I mean, he has been picked as a finisher. Obviously, he's a keeper. Whether he keeps or Salt keeps, I would think it will be Salt, but could be wrong there. And if Jitesh is not keeping, then he could well be the impact sub. It'll be either Devdutt Patakar or Jitesh Sharma would not be in the lineup to start with. I would think if RCB are bowling first, Devdutt would not be in the lineup, and then he would come in. Or as I said, it could be Jitesh. DDP is obviously a very good fielder. Jitesh is steady, but probably Devdutt is a little bit better on that front. Tim David, I mean, they need that finisher, whether it's Romario Shepherd, whether it's Tim David. Tim David is a proven performer at the IPL. He's a proven match winner. He does win games from nowhere. And what I think in any lineup is you have to have different forms of attack. So you can't always rely, on the top order getting it done. Sometimes it's your middle, sometimes it's your power players at the back end. So there are some different points of attack. Tim David will be invaluable. Once again, though, he doesn't want to be starting against Varun Chakravarti and Narayan. And I think KKR will leave some of their overs for the back end to be able to deal with the likes of Livingston and David, those power players, if they come in lower on. Krunal Pandya as a left-hander, if the ball's turning a lot, they could potentially slide him up or down. We know that both Narayan and Chakravarti go both ways, however. So the threat of a left-hander or a right-hander is not as important unless there's a big side or a short side. So he could well slot down there as a finisher. I do worry about Krunal against real pace at the back end. That's not his strength. His strength is more against the medium paces or the spin through the middle. And that's why I had him sort of slotted in at 5 or 6 amongst the power players in my lineup. So it'll be interesting to see where he fits. Rasik Dar, has been bought for a lot of money. He will be playing, though we'll expect him to close the innings out for RCB. He will also bat probably around about that point. Not a huge amount of volume from a domestic point of view, from a batting point of view, but they do see that he has some skills in that area. Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, one of the buys of the IPL auction. Like I said, if the ball swings at Kolkata, these guys will come after him. We know that his in-swinger to the right-hander or away swing to the left-hander goes more than the other one. So expect him to bowl a lot of those, and then he could well bowl the knuckleball that comes in to Narayan in particular. Probably not QDK. I think he'll keep the ball going away from him because QDK loves to pick the ball up on the leg side, but expect the ball going away, and then the knuckleball coming in from Bhuvi. It'll go one of two ways. Bhuvi will either pick up a couple of early wickets or they'll hit him out of the attack and the ball will stop swinging. So that will be a really important matchup, I guess, in the outcome of this match. Hazelwood, if he's fit, will come in. Otherwise, Tassara, I would think maybe Ngidi, but I would think Ngidi if there's a little bit of nibble in the wicket and Hazelwood's not fit. Otherwise, Tassara could well come in here as that point of difference and probably that death option against these power players, Rinku, Russell and Ramandeep, be able to get under the swing with that low slinging arm. But if Hazelwood's fit and there's a little bit of bounce and a bit of nibble in the wicket, he will be hard worked and hard to handle, whether that be with the new ball or towards the end of the power play. Yash Dayal just provides that balance, that left arm angle, once again can shape the ball away from the right-hander, can come back, but a big swinging one into the left-hander. So if he bowls to Narayan early, just expect that in-swinging Yorker from Yash Dayal to Narayan, trying to knock the poles over. So keep an eye out for that one. So if we come back here, I think there are a few different factors. Who can deal best with Chakravarti and Narayan will be a key matchup for RCB from a batting point of view. As I said, I think Salt is well equipped to deal with it. We know Virat can manoeuvre them around nicely, and if he's in, he can basically be the conduit between moving it around and then who's going to take them down. That's going to be the challenge because you can't just block out 8 overs, especially if conditions are swinging. So therefore, you make all 20 overs a risk. So you've got to be able to find a way of taking on Narayan and Chakravarti. Now, Rajat will definitely do that. He will definitely try and take both of them down. We know he's a 6-hitter against spin. Livingston will be interesting to see whether he does. I think he will try. I think Bethel will use more of the sweep, reverse sweep method, which he's very equipped at doing. And if he plays, then, as I said, he will sort of bring another left-hander in this lineup. Jitesh, decent player of spin, can hit both sides of the wicket, but you wouldn't say he's a huge power player against spin. Tim David is a great player of pace at the back end of the innings. But once again, it's a challenge against the Narayan and Chakravarti factor. So, it's difficult. They might use Krunal in terms of going up and trying to take on the spin, almost like a pinch hitter role, in terms of, because we know he's not going to be as effective at the back end. So some really interesting matchups there. For over here, for me, it's where does Rahane fit in? Because, he's obviously been named captain. He's going to play. I just don't think he should bat at 3 because I think that will negate the Raghavanshi factor. And he is a fine player who needs opportunities to promote his game and also KKR's. So for me, Rahane will be Mr. Fix-It. I think if there's a couple of early wickets, he'll slot in. Otherwise, he'll slot down. And he's got the experience to change his game if required. But I think there's no doubt KKR want to play an aggressive brand of cricket. That's what gave them success last year. So Rahane's either got to fit in with that or they've got to find a different role. There's been a few new rules that have come in at late notice from the ICC group. Saliva is now not banned, so you are able to actually shine the ball. And that should bring in two things. If there's no dew, for example, it will bring in traditional swing and also a little bit of reverse. If you can generate a shiny side and a rough side, you will generate both some contrast swing and some natural swing. So that will be interesting. And then there's a ball change after 11 overs in the second innings. Now that is not a mandatory rule. So the umpires will have they will be able to decide whether they're going to do that. And generally they'll only do that if there's dew. My only concern, and I actually like the idea, because they're trying to negate the importance of the toss. The fact that pretty much every side is winning the toss and bowling, makes the game a little bit one-sided. So I like the idea. The IPL are trying to do something in terms of, hey, let's bring in a second ball. It won't be a new ball. It'll be like a 10-over ball. And it'll be the umpire's discretion. My only concern is if there is heavy dew and they change the ball after 11 overs, within an over, it's going to be wet again. So it's not a matter of, just being able to fix the problem completely. It will improve it, without doubt. But to be fair, the first 6 overs, while there's lacquer on the ball doesn't get wet anyway. So there's only a couple of overs where it'll get wet, then they change it, and then it'll get wet again. So I just hope there's the ability to change it, and then maybe change it a little bit again later on. Because the advantage of batting second is the ball will skid on. That's enough. You don't have to have it skidding on and the ball's wet like a piece of soap and the bowlers can't hold it. So I like the idea of what the ICC committee have done. So I see this game as an incredibly tight and exciting game and a great way to start this year's IPL. 2 points, can RCB take early wickets? And I think it'll go one of two ways. With these two batting against these 2 or 3 at the top, it's going to be exciting. And I think that it's going to go one of two ways. RCB or KKR are either going to be 50 off 4 overs or they're going to be 2 for 10. So I think from RCB's point of view, if they can get into that top order, then the middle order doesn't look as good. It doesn't look as strong without a platform. It looks really strong if you've already set the platform. So that'll be key from RCB's point of view. And then, as I said, who can deal with the threat of Varun and Narayan? If RCB can do both of those things, then I think they'll come out on top. At the moment, I see it as a very even game. I think because of the conditions and because of the swing bowlers, and I think it'll bring in these 4 seam bowlers, or these 3 in particular, then I think RCB are actually favourites in this game against KKR.